technology and sometimes just going in there and doing activities with them. Steve?
So the first thing we did after we decided who was going to be in that first rollout, who volunteered, was we knew we had to get the students through the digital citizenship. So we took care of all of that before Christmas break. So we had a standing rotation for the math teachers to go to the computer lab and use the facilities there. So what we did was we just said, oh, since all the school is hitting the computer lab with the math department, let's just use a little bit of that time to get through the EverFi digital citizenship. So that's how we were able to knock that out pretty quickly, and that was really successful. Before we left for Christmas break, we made sure the teachers who were going to be getting the Chromebooks and the carts would feel comfortable. So we did sort of at first a whole staff kind of a presentation on what our rollout was going to look like. So I had created like a slideshow for the teachers, and we went through and talked about timelines and what the tech's role would be versus what my role would be versus the administrative role. And then I even went into a whole, what is blended learning? Because I think that's a concept that for a lot of teachers, they maybe had heard the term, but didn't really know how it was going to function. You know, if you think about teachers, like, and I'm a teacher, I've been a teacher for 13 years, the first thing I want to know is, how is this going to work in my classroom? Thank you for the devices, but how is it going to work in my classroom? So that was where I was coming from. And I know Mr. Irving really leaned on my sort of teacher side expertise to say, well, here's the technology, how are we going to get it in the teacher's hands, and how are they going to be the most successful at creating engaging content for the kids to do? So we talked about blended learning, we talked about distribution, how to sign in, things like that. And then this was a key piece I felt, which was classroom management strategies, because now you're so accustomed to sort of how your classroom runs traditionally. Now you've got a device in front of the student, it changes the game. It changes how you're going to manage your classroom, what kind of strategies you need. So I had the benefit actually of having a cart of MacBooks in my classroom since August when school started. So myself and a partner teacher of mine, we both had that feature. So actually I had already sort of started the year in a blended learning environment. So this rollout for the Chromebooks for the whole staff was actually kind of an interesting coincidence, because I'm like, oh, so I already have all this expertise. So I was able to share that with the teachers. And like Mr. Irving said, I have a really good relationship sort of with my colleagues. So they're not hearing it from the top down, they're sort of hearing it from the side, you know, sort of a lateral initiative. And I think that was really successful too, because they were hearing it from someone who they work with, and you know, so that worked out really well. So like Mr. Irving was saying, another thing I do is every staff meeting, I'll do some kind of a tech demo. So I'll find something interesting, like I've done Kahoot, and last week I did Google Classroom, and this week I'm going to do something else. So just a short 10 or 15 minute, here's something you can do in your classroom, get them engaged and excited. And then a lot of the teachers will tell me, oh, that's great that you showed me how that worked. And I show them how I do it in my classroom, and then they can, the next day, they're trying it out. Also, what I'm doing is sending out a weekly, I call it a Tech Informer, kind of an email to the staff and sharing more like information. So we're trying to get the word out there, trying to get the teachers feeling comfortable but not oversaturated. So whenever I introduce something, I make sure to introduce it in a way that's comfortable for them, that's going to give them a chance to be successful, and most importantly, to let them know, you know, this is something that they can do, which is important, because I feel like if you're not as comfortable sort of technology-wise, you don't want to be overwhelmed. So we sort of approach it from, here are things you can be successful with that you can do in your classroom and that kids will enjoy, because I think that's another big part of it. So that's pretty much what we do. Oh yeah, sure. This is a Google slideshow, so I can definitely share it with you on through email. Yeah, absolutely. And then what you have, this handout, these are just things that I had given the staff, documents that I created. Our implementation plan is here, documents that I created. This I thought was kind of an interesting piece. This is how to print a roster on Aries with birthdays and ID numbers, because when you print a roster, it just has a phone number, and that's not very helpful when a kid wants to log in with their Google and maybe they don't know their birthday or they don't know their ID number. So here's directions on how to do that, and that's super helpful, because when kids are trying to log in, you want to sort of eliminate all of the roadblocks that could exist. So we talked about that in our implementation. So when the kids come in, you already sort of have what you need to have ready, so they're ready to log in and sort of there's no hiccups. And then the other thing too is I do make time to sit with teachers one-on-one and help them as needed, because that's kind of big, because it's one thing to do a whole group sort of presentation, but some people need that personal touch, especially if they don't feel as comfortable with the technology. So that's something that we offer as well.